Hello, once again. So I watched the previous video that I put on YouTube about changing our relationship to alcohol or any drug. Because alcohol is a drug. It's a common misconception that, oh, it's legal, so it's not a drug, it's a drug. Anything that alters your mind and mood is a drug. When I watched the video about changing our relationship to alcohol, I didn't really say much about how we go about doing that. It's very interesting. I want to talk more about changing our relationship to alcohol. You know, changing our relationship to alcohol is very similar to ending an unhealthy relationship with someone. There's many times that you see on TV or in real life, if you've known someone where this has happened to, where someone is in an unhealthy or toxic relationship, but they continue to stay inside that relationship, regardless of the consequences, the negative impact that it has on them. They continue to stay in that relationship, maybe afraid to end it, unknowing of how their life would be without that relationship. They built their world very codependent upon that relationship. And with addiction, it's very similar to that, where we build an unhealthy relationship with alcohol and become dependent upon alcohol in social situations or to relieve anxiety or stress. Eventually, it gets to a point with a lot of people where they become physically dependent upon it, and they have to use in order to feel normal and not to have the shakes. You'll meet people, I've met plenty of people trying to quit alcohol, and after they have gone a day, not even a day sometimes, without drinking, they start to get the shakes and sweats. They sweat profusely. And what levels them out is if they start drinking again. And it gets to the point to where you have to drink in order to feel normal. And that's physical dependence. Now, emotional dependence is a little bit different, where you're drinking in order to relieve stress or anxiety, or social anxiety is a big one. A lot of people say, alcohol is that social lubricant. I need alcohol in order to be okay in a social gathering, like at a party or in some type of event where there's a lot of people there. And I find that very interesting because we're all human beings, and a lot of us are anxious in a social setting. The question is why? When I first got sober, those are the questions that I had to ask myself, because those are the questions that I came up with as well. How am I going to be in a social setting with a lot of people there and not drink? Because that's my social lubricant. Liquid courage, as a lot of people call it. How am I going to do that and be able to strike up conversations? But the question that I had to start asking myself realistically is, why do I need alcohol in order to have a conversation with another human being? That doesn't seem to make sense. So when that started to not make sense, I had to question that whole belief system. So changing, on the topic of a toxic relationship, unhealthy relationship, we do see those people stay in the patterns of unhealthy relationships because of codependency, typically. We have to really recognize why and how alcohol is toxic to us. Not physically, necessarily, because it is toxic to us physically, but emotionally and socially. So similar to ending an unhealthy relationship, one thing that I usually advise my clients to do is write a goodbye letter to alcohol or whatever drug of choice they have. But in this case, alcohol. So to write a goodbye letter to alcohol, write a breakup letter to alcohol. And say in that letter specifically the good times and bad times, and why you're choosing to end that relationship based upon the bad times. with our relationship to alcohol, we tend to remember a lot of the good times, but we tend to block out all the crappy times that we've had. You know, worshiping the porcelain god, all the hangovers in the morning, social consequences, legal consequences, arguments that we have with people. There's, you know, the negative impacts are they're numberless, really. So remembering all those things and actually writing it down in a goodbye letter to alcohol. And interesting, you know, with alcohol, it's we do have a relationship with alcohol. Now, alcohol is neutral. It's just this substance. It is neutral. That relationship that we create with alcohol comes from up here. We make it either a good thing or a bad thing. We create that relationship to it. So when I say we have to change ourselves, change our heart, change our mind, change our associations, change our relationship with it, it does start with us. But yeah, write a goodbye letter. Write a breakup letter with alcohol. You know, alcohol, we've had some good times, but I feel that we need to end our relationship, and here's why. And write it all out. Don't hold back. And keep it. Keep it. Store it somewhere. Keep it where you know you can find it to remind yourself of why you want to end that relationship. That's one way to help change your relationship to alcohol, is to be honest with yourself about that relationship to alcohol. Does that relationship benefit you in the end? Or does that relationship hinder you? That's a question you really have to ask yourself. So there's a great place to start. Thanks.